Hello, and welcome to Season 2 of In Light of It All, the podcast exploring the fascinating ways light and design shape our lives. Light influences everything, your sleep, mood, and even your hormones. Here we dive into everything light touches: colours, surfaces, textures, psychology, neuroaesthetics, and chronobiology. We'll also explore the future of healthy design, blending the latest technology with our ancient rhythms. We spend 90% of our lives indoors, more time than maximum security prisoners, and yet light, the force that guides how we feel and function, is often overlooked. My goal is simple: to take incredible academic research and distill it into bite-sized insights that even I can understand. If you like the sound of that, follow us on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and without further ado, let's get into it. Today we are joined by Tapio Rosenius. Tapio is a Finnish designer and entrepreneur and CEO at Poet Creator Software, a platform merging data, light, science, and media into real-time environments. His award-winning work in biomimetic and responsive lighting has redefined how spaces interact with people. In this conversation, Tapio shows us the future of architecture, buildings that respond and adapt to you in real time. We unpack ambient communication, biomimicry, and the philosophy of naked tech that makes technology invisible yet transformative. This episode is a glimpse into a world where architecture feels alive. Hope you enjoy. So, Tapio, hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Good. Mate. Thank you so much. Again, so excited to talk to you about all this kind of stuff. So, thank you for coming in from Madrid. Made the flight. So, ambient communication. Sounds. Well, I'll tell you what. Should we start with? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce, your background, what you do, who you are.
Well, in a nutshell, I'm a Finnish designer, lighting designer guy who sort of half accidentally ended up working in UK in design in sort of mid 90s, and then I never went back home. So, and ever since then, I've been sort of heading south. So, we spent quite a few years in London. Working very internationally from here. Then we had our first kid with my half Spanish, half French wife here in London, and thought, so we ended up in Madrid. And then 2009, I started a design studio called LDC, Light Design Studio, Light Design Collective. And then 2016, we got approached by Finnish government R&D department, and they essentially invited us to be part of a research program, a research project, one of these Horizon 2020 kind of EU-funded, pretty big projects. And the title of the project was Towards Digital Paradise. And it became very clear very early on that this was actually kind of like a product research. And it made no sense, or in fact, it wasn't possible to do it within the realms of a design consultancy. So at that point, we spun off basically a startup, and the startup was called Scandal, or is called Scandal Technologies. And the first couple of years, really, it was heads down research into primarily a concept of ambient communication. So this vision of nearables. So if you think that we're now still sort of on our way to the wearable revolution, so the watch is already there, the headphones are getting more clever.
Google Glasses.
The glasses are coming, or maybe not, but at least there's a lot of effort put into that. All that. So that's the wearable. So that research thought about the next step. So after wearables. So this idea that all the technology recedes and actually goes into the architecture, and all the digital services are available to you when you want it, where you want it, embedded in the architecture, and you're essentially like naked from technology. It was called the naked approach, very Finnish thing. So that's where the idea of ambient communication sort of came. I was then lucky to partner with a guy called Andrew Bedard, who's our COO, who comes from the sort of intelligent environments, video analytics world, and had a very successful startup in that space before. So he came on board and then gave a lot of sort of depth to the whole ambient communication vision. And then I was super lucky to get an incredibly talented CTO, a guy called Miguel Alvarez in Spain, to be able to actually build a platform like this. So the end result of all that was Poet.
Mm.
Um,
Which I think is a perfect name for, ambient communication, digital paradise. You call it Poet. It's
yeah, so maybe there's something there.
It.
So yeah, because we obviously don't. We never set out to build, for example, a lighting controller. Yes, it controls lighting in the most intelligent way in the world, but it's not about that. It is like an intelligent environments platform, and anything and everything that could mean, right? So first we had to sort of just resolve a lot of tech, just enabling tech. So okay, the concept of ambient communication is that this environment would give you like subtle nudges that are beneficial to you, that are contextual.
Using what specifically? Just light, or are you working with sound as well, or?
Yeah, to be honest, anything. So, but light is really, really powerful because of its sort of abstractness.
Mm.
So
this is where science meets art in a lot of ways.
And psychology.
Yeah.
So it's because with light you can do this sort of peripheral shifts that talk directly to your basically pre-attentive processing part of your brain, meaning it's the intuitive part. You don't need to think, what should I do next? It's not cognitive. There's no cognitive load. You just feel
autopilot.
Yeah, you just feel like, okay, well, I probably should go left then. You don't necessarily know why. So lighting is incredibly powerful in that context when you connect it to real-time data harvesting and the context and outcomes. We'll talk about that. But so we use light, but we use a lot of video screen projection, sound, actuators. We're completely agnostic when it comes to output. So it's the important thing is what are the desired outcomes, and then you work back from there and think, okay, well, actually, when there's more than 10 children in the museum lobby and it's raining outside, a door should open that takes them to a lobby where first of all their shoes get dried, and second of all the experience is suitable for kids or exciting for kids, right? Very hard to know when is that going to happen. So that's why you then need to have multiple data inputs to be able to actuate that.
What kind of got you into all this? I mean, was there something missing from buildings, or was it just, does your brain work in a way where you're fascinated by tech and seeing its potential, or how did you end up here?
Good question. So probably I would maybe say that it comes all the way back from just the sort of cultural education and background I have personally speaking. So I'm very much, I'm a musician, amateur, bad one, but absolutely in love with all that. Which then brought me into kind of doing lighting for bands and that kind of things. And then I studied photography, got really into cinema, got really into narrative, storytelling, experiential things. We were doing very immersive experiential things without having vocabulary for it. Already then, sort of early 90s. I'm really, really into art, and I've been always very interested of it was used to be called media art when that was studied in our school, for example. Now it's maybe called digital art. So it's probably all that. In other words, I don't come from architecture. I don't come from engineering. All amazing disciplines and amazing things, but it's just not my background. So when I got into the architectural world and the architectural lighting, it always struck me how static it was and how one size fits all it was.
Did you have an electrical engineering degree or qualifications?
No.
You learn ad hoc on the
I don't
on the
know
job?
nothing about electricity. Nothing. I mean, I'll kill someone with it. No. I don't have any of that. I have a essentially a Bachelor of Arts. And then after that, I in London actually, 2000, I did do part-time in the Bartlett Master of Science, which taught me essentially the patience to get through academic research texts. I'm forever grateful for them.
Patience is a good term for that, because it's all in your head, but you have to structure it. It's hypothesis and method and da-da-da, and you're like, I just want to tell you what I found.
Yeah,
Legitimize it in the eyes of the professionals.
it felt really hard at the time, but now I like really enjoy that sort of literature. So there's that kind of a little bit of a science geek in me. And the last 2 years, I've dedicated like most of my extra waking hours into just studying behavioral science and behavioral psychology, and I just find it so relevant to what we're doing. Like it's 100% relevant to what we're trying to do with the technology and with the whole Poet platform. And it just gives you the tool sets, essentially the design tool sets. Now I'm convinced that that should be part of any lighting designer's kind of education should be like really drill into the basics, because there's so much research done there already, kind of very well understood, well tested, known facts. It's used extensively in marketing and in that world, but not so much in the built environment.
Well, this is kind of why, you and I are sat in a room, and why I've got this sort of weekend and evening passion to read exactly like you do, environmental psychology or neuroaesthetics, or because going around, for a start, light is really overlooked. It's always the first thing to get value engineered, and then I started learning about how influential light is to our, as you say, your sort of like autopilot. And then you speak to architects who do 10 years of studying to create the buildings that we live in. And things like biology and, as far as I'm aware, psychology and neuroaesthetics, I guess, would be a bit. But these interesting aspects of human behavior and the sort of, I guess, artistic side of what it means to be human perhaps aren't included in the sort of growth of the brains that then design our spaces. And it's interesting that your approach to, your entrance into the industry and the way that you approach stuff, it's kind of like, Steve Jobs. He sort of dropped out of the course that he was doing at university or at college, because he was like, right, I don't need any of this stuff. I want to learn calligraphy, and that's why we've got the beautiful aesthetic. So it's left brain, right brain. It's interesting how, you're not doing an electrical engineering degree, but being fascinated by art, almost taking a very technological, rigid, boxed perception of lighting or technology or whatever it might be, and kind of adding the color and the music and the human emotion to it. And then I don't know, I think that's the real creativity that's coming through, which is amazing. It's
the instrument versus the artist thing, right? So
emotion versus structures.
Yeah, you can take the cheapest knockoff Stratocaster guitar and give it to Jimi Hendrix, and he'll do something mind-blowing with it. So yes, you need the guitar, but you don't need the best guitar in the world. You need that combo. So the tools drive professions a lot. Tools create professions. I mean, look at the impact of Photoshop in the 90s in professional photography, or look at the impact of Canva right now, or look at the impact of Figma.
The most successful female entrepreneur, isn't she?
Yeah, incredible. And when she was pitching for it, she was just laughed at. So
134 billion or something. That's insane.
Yeah, so what she did was she created a tool that was far more accessible, hid away the complexities, hid away the engineering approach, and made it essentially a design approach. It's a useful tool. So it is the tool that then generates a lot of the industry. So in a way, we are trying to do that. We're trying to create a tool that it's so easy and intuitive and quick to achieve things that used to, or still largely are, awfully complex to do, like meaningful interactive lighting, or responsive environment, or generative environment. You know, those are quite abstract words. They sound very abstract because you don't really have a lot of references in your head when somebody says that. I think that is constantly changing.
They just become buzzwords, really, don't they? So
They are buzzwords, but there's always something, you know, behind the buzzword, right? So in that, that's really the kind of one of the core things, is that somebody somewhere has to just decide one day that the tool set that I've been given is not capable or good enough for me to achieve the outcomes that I have just promised my client. You have two options. You go to the industry and say, give me better tools. Often you get a very glazed look because they are not in a position where you are in terms of understanding the outcomes your client needs. Then you need to, your second option is make your tools then.
What I love as well is you talking about the tools in the right hand suddenly become, objects you can create the emotion with, just like a tool in the form of a guitar for Jimi Hendrix. You can make the art. I like the idea that you've called it poet, because it's quite literally taking the tools but actually putting the emotion in. So why did you call it poet?
All our namings are just like stupid band names. Lemonheads, Radioheads. No, this came from, I think this actually came from Chris Crow. I think it was on a kitchen table. It was because power over Ethernet was a kind of a cool thing. So we were thinking,
it's multi-layered, that I love it.
So we could kind of like, you just got to like get rid of all the extra cables and it's like POE, POE. So it's as silly as that. So it came from the POE, poet. And then the Scandal tag came from kind of like Scandinavian lighting, scandalite, scandal, like, and then that's a kind of stupid. But I believe in marketing intelligence that it's just like choose a name, choose a logo. It's like any name, any logo. Don't think about it, and just stick with it. Stick with it.
I love it though. It seems so considered. I'm getting all philosophical about it, being like, because words are put in order to become poetry, and you're like, dude, I came up with it at 6 a.m. after 9 beers.
It's basically like that. It's like and then you post rationalize it 7 years later. Oh yeah, that
actually works.
But
when you trust your gut, I guess is the
then of course, we are wanting the built environment to become more emotionally charged, for example, more emotionally meaningful, and then more contextual, more time-based. So, and not just time-based, just kind of event-based. So, some years ago, we were toying up with this idea of, this was a time when my kids were very small, so it would have been over 10 years ago. So I came up with this idea that you would have a light switch in the baby's room. And the user interface is literally a one round button. You press the button. It's always the same button. But what happens when you press the button depends on, if this then that, Boolean logic. So if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and the baby is crying and you press the button, a certain kind of ambience is created that is absolutely perfect for the mother to come or the father to come pick up the baby, maybe breastfeed, etc., calm the baby down. Well, if it's 1 o'clock during the day on Saturday and there's clearly 7 kids in the room and the noise levels are X, well then, and somebody presses the button, well, something entirely different should happen, surely, right? Contextual environment. That's basically what we're doing now. So the complexity is hidden from the end user. End user doesn't need to know anything about this. They just press the button and it's always perfect.
Which sort of so you talk about, so I know you're talking about, you do stadiums. Can you tell us a bit about the type of projects you do, and then maybe we can go in a little bit some case studies on how you would go from concept to delivery and the brief and the overall.
So
where you
so
integrate?
Poet is used by a number of professionals. It's not just used by us. It is a professional commercial product available to anyone. So it is used by experienced designers or AV integrators. For example, a good use case is sort of customer experience suites, UX suites. Mainly, CX, I think it is. Mainly because those are the sort of architectural environments where there is a need for tremendous amount of personalization and customization all the time. And there's a lot of digital things there are needed to achieve it. So there'll be a number of projectors, there would be a big video wall, there would be a bunch of, color changing lighting, they might want an interactive element, etc. To do that, typically speaking, you would need a sound system, a lighting control system, a data control harvesting system, a media server, and then 15 magicians integrating all those things together with chewing gum. And then during the day one, it all works perfectly. And then 3 weeks later, there's a problem. And it's just so much complexity for anyone involved that they tend to have like a lot of headaches. So in that kind of use case, Poet comes in and it's one computer and it can just handle all of that. If you need to do an update, the update happens remotely. You change content. The designer can build a new business model for themselves from remote content management. You can do sustenance, monitoring, this sort of thing. So that's very kind of like a pragmatic use case. Then there's all sorts of experiential environments, and they can vary from, at the typical thing you would see on Pinterest, YouTube is some kind of lobby experience where there's kind of interactive screens, generative content, digital art, a little bit more gimmicky, but nevertheless so easy to do now with Poet that you can really make it interesting, meaningful, and ever changing for your client very easily without having to be a programmer. So a designer can do that, and again provide remote management, content refreshment, that sort of thing as subscription, sell over it basically. And then from there it goes into the, let's say, what we would consider more interesting use cases. It's where it begins to provide an instrumental benefit to the end client. And that's, for example, we have a large project in Sevilla in Spain. It's called Zeta Sevilla, an existing, very contemporary piece of architecture. Had been there for 10 years. Essentially what we did was we introduced an experiential layer primarily with lighting and sensing to the roof of it. So there's a light experience, or the immersive light experience. You walk through it, and thanks to that, we changed their business model. So they used to have a business model which was that you would charge €5 for people to take a lift, go to the roof during the day, see the views. Beautiful. Now it was, okay, and then close at sunset. Now it's like you open at sunset, you charge €15, and you open till 1 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week. So 30% more opening hours, 200% ticket price increase. Entirely new life for this infrastructure, so pretty sustainable thinking there. Everything remote managed, nobody on site. All the content generated in real time, all the time, based on number of people, the weather patterns, all sorts of different data inputs. So it's an ever-changing
What would the weather
experience.
patterns influence? So what if it's a grey day? You'd maybe dial up the colours a bit to have that contrast. Or...
Yeah, and seasonal changes, so seasonal color palettes.
Which is biophilic in itself in terms of sort of connecting inside to out. I mean, you're on a rooftop, so you're seeing what season it is. I guess,
Yeah,
but...
and the wind speed is pretty nice there. So if you literally, sometimes it's pretty windy, so you feel the wind at the back of your neck. The lights go exactly that direction at that speed.
No way.
So
That's so cool.
And then there's interaction points. You sort of wave in the air and those sorts of things, which are kind of pretty straightforward things, but nevertheless surprisingly engaging when the scale is right. So overall, in that kind of thing what makes it so powerful, I think, is that it's enormous. So you're like in the middle of this sort of field of light in an urban context. You sort of like
It's a bit of a release, that,
walking on the light.
Concrete jungle, and you get like an overwhelming sense of. I mean, have you been to? It's a place called Here. Well, that's the club underneath this art installation in Tottenham Court Road station.
Yeah, of course.
So you come out and there's I mean, that is, people get stuck there.
Yeah,
you come out. The amount of times I zip around London all the time. You see people just with their phones, and it feels like a disconnect, an absolute release of self.
Yeah, and they do amazing content.
You should go for a night out underneath. That's a lot of fun. They did the launch of the Ford Mach-E was there, and they have a whole 3-sided LED.
That's a nice segue then to the other instrumental benefit that we are seeing the client getting. So one is sort of you enable new kind of revenue models and new kind of experiences. Another one is sort of large-scale immersive branding that can be done quick and easy. So ambient communication can also be conceptualized that. So when in a stadium, it would have been that you would have a screen, you would sell advertising space to, and a bunch of sort of smaller screens inside, etc. Now you can actually give a brand a takeover of the entire venue, of the entire visual experience. So it's the facades, it's the circulation areas, it's the vomitor rooms, and you do that by mixing essentially box standard, industry standard color changing lighting and projections and video screens. Nothing special about the output devices. Where it gets special is that it's all holistically orchestrated from one point. That's the tricky bit currently. And you can then add interactivity to anywhere you want, just through things like normal CCTV cameras. So you don't even need any special sensors or stuff like that. So
can you retrofit it then? So could you go?
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah. How would that work?
Plug in, like you have your existing lighting control system. We send a stream of either we send a video content stream to it and it maps it, or we send ArtNet or streaming ACN or Kynet.
And you can hack CCTV cameras as a sort of sensor to then dial in. So you can use the existing hardware.
Absolutely.
You can adjust to.
Because, like, let's say CCTV cameras, mostly they use completely standard streaming protocols like RTSP, that sort of thing. So depend on the use case. But yeah, absolutely. And you can go quite far. So now we are using, for example, CCTV cameras where our primary input is actually not the image, it's the metadata. So we can draw virtual lines in the CCTV camera feed and say when people crosses that line, do X. So you build triggers in Poet like that. It gets pretty interesting in a sports context when you're looking at the pitch. And in basketball, you put a virtual line on a 3-point line and you put another there. You would constantly learn, now somebody crossed the 3-point line. 2 days later, that same venue is used for ice hockey. You have another preset, another set of lines appear, and now you're triggering based on ice hockey. So it's digital infrastructure which allows you to, like, it's infinitely malleable in every way.
Do you have this at your house as well? Do you walk into the kitchen and like whistle twice and your coffee gets made and you
by my daughter,
applause?
I don't.
On a tight ship.
I keep saying that. Like I don't need. Because my son was like, why don't you get one of these remote controllers to open the garage doors?
Why do you think I had kids?
Yeah, like I don't need it. I got you.
You got to earn your rent somehow.
Look, it works. Yeah. Hey, Lucas, open the door, and the door opens. Incredible. So no is the answer. I have hardly anything. Hardly any lighting in my house. But it's just to say that there's a tremendous opportunity right now that comes from this interesting merger of various kinds of technologies being commoditized. So one being the sensing technology, one being network technology, one being lighting technology. They're getting very sort of easy to procure, easy to find. They're pretty much, all following same or similar protocols. So so the tech's not really holding anyone back now, I would argue.
Is the tech moving forward that far? Or do you think it's kind of reached a bit of a peak?
Oh, it's moved. No, it hasn't. So right
Like,
now, what's happening, if you ask me, it's the design that's behind.
mm.
It's the
As in the
concept.
creativity.
It's the conceptual thinking that's behind.
Mm.
It's really like if we think built environment technologies and what you can integrate there, there's nothing there holding anyone back anymore.
Mm.
So as I said, things like LED quality is good enough. It's commoditized, so they're pretty cheap. Video projectors can now be used 24/7. They have laser light sources. They don't break every 3 months, etc., etc. So there's robust tech. What's missing is deep conceptual thinking and mapping out the client's problems and answering them in new ways, and therefore extracting maximum value out of their infrastructure, being it through multiple use cases, so the opening hours are longer. You don't build a stadium and keep it empty for 300 days a year type of thing. So you find new uses for it, and how do you then personalize the environment to suit various different users? Well, various digital technologies like lighting is the easiest way of doing it, right? It's cheap, it's instant. I can change the users and the mood of this space entirely with a flick of a switch, and I can reprogram and make it look something that's meaningful for you later today. I can do that from Madrid, so you don't need anyone here. It's cost effective, so you don't need to hire.
You basically created the ultimate remote working company. You can literally sit in your bed all day and just dial into a ice hockey place in Canada, a showroom in London,
which is
really
exactly what we do.
Yeah.
And but so can you, right? So we are here to basically introduce to the world a system and a platform that allows anyone to do that.
Do you think hospitals and health, have you ever done any kind of healthcare stuff?
We are very much in. Well, I can't talk too much about it, but, so it's in a little bit prototyping stage, but we are in the mental health vertical right now, exploring sort of through a partner who's a specialist in this in North America, way of basically pacifying psychotic patients, particularly teenagers, when they arrive in psychotic state, only through digital content lighting and soundscapes and sort of ligament-proof touchscreens and those sorts of things. Appears to be working, or there's a lot of good findings there. We're also involved in sort of immersive environments for example, oncology. So, because they have kids who just simply cannot go out. And there's an interesting problem there that you might take a kid, put them in an immersive environment to kind of just give them that
breathing room
escape, allow them that sort of relaxation, put them content, but sometimes they can be so tired and knackered that you don't actually know if you are relaxing them. So let's say you put content, then you need to understand how does that kid right now is actually feeling, and if you find out that this is stressing them out, then you can automatically change the content.
How do you research? So you know the scientific papers that you said once, when you had to write them, it was a bit mundane, should we say? But now, like me, you enjoy reading the papers and the white papers and stuff like that. How do you research for your project? So, for example, you've got this children's hospital. How would you find the research that's going to influence your creative design?
Well, in that use case, there is a whole bunch of professionals through our partners who that's their world. they
And do you
know.
do research as well, or is it more asking the researchers, or do you
No, we of course
work in tandem?
we work in tandem, and yeah, and as I said, I'm a bit of a geek for this, so it, I do that all the time, like even if it's not paid for.
You and me both.
Yeah, no, it fascinates me because there's so much there, and so for example, one of the reasons I'm in London this week is because we're in discussions with a really amazing startup from here who have cracked the ability to determine emotional state from voice analysis, and then combining that with biomarkers like heart rate and possibly things like skin conductivity later on, which would then give
Wow.
you the ability. I mean, this is where we're now going. We are right now testing it with the API. Is that in Poet, one of the conditions is like, okay, 4 kids in the room, general mood happy. 1 kid in a room, general mood agitated. And you as a designer can then serve something into that space, being it sound or light or projection or a screen content, with a name that that person would, let's say relax or whatever. But you always need a feedback loop. So one thing is to kind of like from above say, there you go, relaxing content. But it's what you thought was relaxing content. So you need a data feedback loop to then say, is it actually working? And this is across the board. So any environment that we're involved with, the goal is that it's no longer a top-down design process, which they all currently are. So educated designers use tried and tested, industry standardized solutions that are found to be okay or good. Nothing wrong with that. But in my opinion, it misses a trick. Because now with the tech, you can actually build in a feedback loop that says perfect for now, the same space. So how should this place be on a Tuesday morning when there's 30 people and the use case is a company presentation versus Friday evening with 200 people where the use case is something else? Like you don't, everybody can conceptualize that, but how do you make those changes in practice? So you need to have an automated feedback loop.
Where do you test this though? Because I mean, at some stage there must be, you have all the sensors, the feedback loop is there, and you get people walking in and out, and you're able to sort of, I guess, respond and change conditions according to the changing emotions of people in the room. It must be quite complicated. There must be a lot of misses as well as hits when it comes to trying to get that perfect level, which may agitate people more. I mean, how do you manage that?
Well, so the most important and the most beautiful thing about all this is that you don't even need to pretend that you will know exactly the outcome from the get-go. So you communicate to your client that here are our behavioral targets. So as a lighting designer, for example, you start designing for behavioral targets. So we did a project where the behavioral target was influencing the choice architecture in a lobby in a way that people would use the staircase more than they use the lift. Or at least use the staircase more than they use it now. So we set up sensing on every landing, very clever sensors, AI trained sensors that knows the direction, but also knows if you're a child or a man or a woman, and at 12 times if you stop, and those sorts of things. So pretty rich set of data. 7 floors, every landing has a bunch of sensors, or one sensor. We then suspended a super basic, simple white light luminaire. It's a 60s staircase, so the luminaire looked like from the 60s. We switched it on. We then counted for 6 months the use of the staircase, like that.
Mm.
Collected all the data, then started the behavioral experimentation.
Mm.
And we even had a team of behavioral scientists on this. So basically, the first experiment was the light starts moving upwards, just a flow of light upwards. Nothing triggers it, it just does it like a loop. We then looked at the data and said, did it have any impact on the use of the staircase? And it did. It went up by 6%. 6% in behavioral psychology is a lot, almost suspect. It's like, okay, so there was probably quite a lot of novelty effect going on. But nevertheless, then we introduced interaction. Really simple interaction, but it was triggered. So the thing would be off. You would walk into the staircase, it would light up, and then if you stopped, it would stop kind of and start doing little games in front of you. So in other words, obvious enough for you to understand that, wait a minute, it is actually me who's doing this. Creates a little bit of talking point. Have you seen that thing? Blah, 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 blah. So the use of the staircase went up by another 8%. We then correlated from that data the number of steps that being taken in addition to the normal base state, taken upwards. So I don't know if you know this, but every time you take a one step up, your life extends by 4 seconds.
No way.
It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek research, but it is from Harvard. So it's kind of like, okay, clearly there's some health benefits.
It's like governments potentially could be like, all right, well.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't probably put my hand on fire on how would you ever prove that.
No,
but
of course.
But anyway, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but interesting. And another one is that you burn, I think it was 0.16 calories every time you take a step up. So health benefits. So we correlated the number of steps taken up, number of calories burned, number of days of life extended collectively by the building.
Oh, carbon saved from the energy from the lift being
and
used,
then the
all
lift.
that
So
kind of stuff,
it was over 11,000 lift rides that we saved. So
in CO2 as well. I mean, even having that, and then you go the number of VW Golfs. So, it's always quite fun having them as the infographics.
Yeah, so you start getting a
amount.
flywheel there, right? So if you then think, if you zoom out and you say you are a real estate developer and you have 2 big buildings like this side by side, and Google wants to hire a new office. Well, this building here on the left has been scientifically proven to extend the life of the occupants, to burn calories and to save energy. This one on the right, otherwise identical, doesn't do any of those things. Which one would you rent? Or indeed, as a real estate developer, would you be able to ask 5% more rent for the one that extends the life and proves it? So, so there's you can build it like that. But the key thing is, it's like you need to be able to prove it, right? So you need that data layer, you need that data analysis, that data harvesting. In one hand, to show it's not bullshit, that it's happening, but even more interestingly, as a designer, to me, what's interesting is that it might not work, but that's okay because right? So you'll be able to see that, okay, hey, we told you that, people are going to start taking the staircase because the lights are flickering. Turns out that they don't care. Nothing's changing. So what we suggest is let's try another thing. And again, because it's digital, so you don't need another infrastructure intervention. You just do another bunch of content, make it more stronger, make it obvious, time it differently.
It's interesting saying it as content because in a weird kind of way, it's building marketing. You're creating a narrative within the space through.
It's anything you want it to. You can position it, but as long as you position it from the angle of the outcome, particularly behavioral outcome, then there's value, and then you prove that value with your data. And so in this case, all this is sort of quite well-known behavioral psychology tricks, nudging, all the novelty bias, all sorts of things like that. You use those as your tool set, And then, after 6 months, that thing, people start getting blind to it. It's a bit boring, I've seen it. Again, because it's digital, you change it. Completely different thing. Now this time you link it to music, you make it color.
There's also another angle
all
on
sorts
that,
of things.
because every 6 months, you end up being like, okay, that room we decorated 6 months ago. The first month, you're like, I love this place. It's energizing, it's new, it's fresh, it's giving me that new living feeling because it's new to me. It's that new sensorial upload and unfamiliarity. When you then get to 6 months later and it's very, very familiar, you kind of want to change it again. So it's interesting to think about how much would be spent on doing every single room in your house compared to having one installation that would be an ever-evolving, living thing that would almost create that
and
that thing you're
particularly,
looking for.
absolutely, and particularly in commercial architecture or sports architecture, sort of office infrastructure, they do struggle with this a lot. Is that there's a lot of capex investment in the beginning, and they might kind of like get into buying cool things like video screens or video ceilings or projections and cool lighting and all sorts of things. And right now, it's basically just a cost, right? It's a capex cost, it's an opex cost. So it costs you to operate it, it costs you a lot to put it in. Now, with this thinking that it's actually real time, that it's actually easy to update and change and to be contextual, and even automate that process so that it can even automatically change 2 years down the line. You don't even know how it's going to change because it changes because of this chorus of data inputs that's being told to follow, right? Now, if you do that correctly, it actually becomes a profit center. So the operational aspect of this entire thing is constantly on a plus. So you get your return on investment. You can do that through HR. So it can be about talent retention, it can be about talent attraction. You can quantify it like that. You can do it through wellness, like I just talked about, or you can do it through sponsorship deals on a large scale ambient branding context in, let's say, sports architecture. Whichever way you do it, that is the key reason for any of this to be there in the first place. Because what I don't particularly rate highly is when lighting and AV and all those sorts of things are used for decoration or kind of cool gimmicks, for a simple reason that they have such a short shelf life. And as we know from the last 20 years of urban color changing RGB lighting, is probably the most effective way of making something extremely expensive like a new building look extremely cheap. Right? Only because the content is not considered. This is a well-known problem, really.
You hear stories as well. I mean, I know there's one particular tower in Dubai, which is, they're all branded out there, and it was 50% commercial, I think like 20% hospitality, and the rest was residential. And the residential flats suddenly had, LED screens on the outside of the buildings, blasting white light all night, and they didn't consider it. They thought, right, well, the outside of the building needs to be magnificent, so we'll colour it in ridiculous numbers of LEDs and have amazing animations. And suddenly all the residents were saying, well, look, why are you doing it at 2 a.m? I can't sleep. So they had to turn it all off. Whereas I guess with your software, if it was responsive and adjustable, you could actually just change it. So either it just eases off at sort of 10 p.m, or you just make it so that whole visual effect starts to diffuse.
Exactly.
You
You design the
experiences or
content so that it doesn't
but very easily without
appear
having coding or just writing off and cutting the cabling all the way up to the top floors. It's just
because
future-proof.
Exactly. So
Breathing
tremendous capex investment goes to waste because the operations were not considered, and the system that was put in place wasn't flexible enough. So
and we're all human, right? So it's
so there's a lot of. So I think we're going through kind of like different motivations, different use cases for these sorts of things.
What's the main feedback people give you afterwards? So, like your clients, after they see it, what do they say? What do they say is added to the people that live in the building? What's added to them as a business? What's the...
Well, I mean, they like it. So if there's an operational benefit, it gets operated. So we even even a simple kind of open plan office with our system, they request content updates. Sometimes 2 or 3 times a week in an open plan office, because you can use it to congratulate a colleague for a birthday. You can use it to turn your office into a dining environment or a cocktail club. You start using your existing space in so many different ways. So it's just operational benefit.
Can it be used for safety as well? So say, can it tell the age of a person? So if an elderly person is confused or lost or fallen over, would it be able to...
Yeah. You could. There's a fair amount of machine vision that's been trained for those sorts of things. Like if somebody falls over, there's also sensing on elderly people that exactly for that purpose. Linking them through an API to the control system would be pretty trivial. So, absolutely. And for the safety aspect, there's the crowd control aspect of this. So, if there's more than 30 people now in the south staircase and it has been raining and it's slippery, then do this. Increase the light levels, make it clear, make something that kind of alerts you to that, make it all real time. So absolutely. I mean, having said that, Boyd has not been envisioned as a
safety device,
sort of safety and security device, because that world comes with its own kind of regulative aspects that we are not familiar with. So we are ISO 27, but so a lot of sort of cyber security side is handled, but then sort of operational aspects I wouldn't necessarily, at this moment in our sort of development trajectory, I wouldn't necessarily pitch Boyd too much for the security world.
How do you balance, obviously it's just tech, how do you make it feel natural? Because that, I think, there lies the gold, right?
Yeah.
In an overloaded tech world, how do you...
I think by trying to make it intuitive and fast enough, so trying to remove layers of complexity from the user interface. So in other words, if I want to encourage people to drink water during the working day, I might just hide a little video projector in the ceiling near the water cooler, and occasionally, based on sort of slightly randomized triggering, a little ripple will appear on the wall. People will see that in the periphery, in the corner of their eye, and that might nudge 3 to 4% of the people to drink a little bit more water during the day, right? So for me to create that, I go to the Poet, I go to the Ripple engine, I track it into the output, and then I say random intervals during working hours. Click.
It's that simple.
Done.
Yeah.
And would you like the ripple to be different speed if it's windy outside or not windy outside, or if it's morning or if it's lunchtime? Oh yeah, actually, why did you make it a bit faster in the evenings, a bit more kind of or make it turn blue towards the end of the day, make it bright white in the morning, that sort of thing. Okay, you link that. You can even link the color change to the position of the sun outside.
So could I, if I had this installed and then I had the software, it seems quite, the interface of it's quite simple. Could I control each room in my house and create curves in line with, I don't know,
yeah, of course,
atomic clocks and stuff?
Yeah, it's designer friendly.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, it's free for designers. So if you're just working on a project in a concept stage and you're just trying to try something out, you go to the website, download the software, get it going, drop your own 3D model in, as long as you understand a little bit about UV mapping, so you get your sort of surfaces proportionally correct for the content. And if you know what you're doing, what I'm describing will take you minutes. Maybe first time around you need to watch some tutorials, or maybe have a onboarding session with us. It'll take you an hour, but so very, very quickly you can kind of get things going, because it's a very designer orientated software. There's no script, there's no typing code, there's no object orientated programming, which all that is amazing, but it's just not
necessary.
It's just not very designer friendly. Like, for example, my patience and mind doesn't stretch as far as sort of becoming a major object-oriented programming guru. Like, it's just not me. But
life's too short for a lot of people, I mean, it's a different interest, right? But
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
can have code compressed into one symbol that you can drop, boom, done.
So when you go to Photoshop now and you take your image, there's a button that says remove background.
Yeah.
I get that. Like, I understand. Okay, then.
Yeah.
I don't particularly care how they do that, but it's total black magic, obviously. So it used to be in the 90s, you would go with your lasso tool and spend 2.5 hours trying to go around the hair.
Yeah.
And it still looks shit, right? And now it's
jagged edges of someone's head.
so that's what I mean, is that it's very designer friendly to just press a button. So, it's a little bit that kind of analogy, so that if I want a light very softly to kind of just move across the room, but then I look at it and I go, maybe it should be a little bit faster. Then it literally is just a lever that you go. I don't need to start programming some steps again.
So you've dialed in music. Have you dialed in smells or anything like that? Or what's the sort of like the other senses? Are you?
Well, we're agnostic when it comes to inputs, and we're agnostic when it comes to outputs. So a smell machine works very often with things like network commands. So if you give me a machine that has 6 different, fragrances, and they are A, B, C, D, E, F, then I can just say, if it's morning and there's somebody in the room and they appear to be sitting on their desk, then do this kind of lighting setup, open the window and put a little whiff of fragrance C. So it's just conditional scheduling. So we use Boolean logic. So you drag and drop. So you literally, let's just say morning, more than one person, desk, fragrance C, start. And every time those conditions are met, forever, it will do that. And then within the content themselves, you can also then link parameters. So the color can change because of the time of the day. The color can change to suggest something, like suddenly goes red because your father fell over in the living room, if you have that data input. Or it goes red because Arsenal got a red card, or they scored. So at the moment, for example, in terms of like a big data harvesting, we have all the world's football, all the world's baseball, basketball, a lot of sports like that. They are integrated. So if you want your environment, being it a stadium or a sports bar or your home cinema, if you want them to track your favorite team, you essentially set it once, and it forever it knows when they're
Tells
playing.
you when.
Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
when they're not playing, the system is asking every 1 minute, like, are you playing? As soon as it gets a ping back, says, yeah, we're playing. It starts going 5 times a second. So when they score, your environment shifts
What
in
about
real
so
time.
in terms of sort of scientific data and research on, say, synesthesia or the impact of texture or color psychology, are you able to get easy access to, say, Oxford or Harvard University's data or research? Is there a scientific outlet where you can drag and drop that data in to be
Well, that's design.
beneficial to the.
Well, that's design research, right? So that would be for the designers listening. I would encourage a lot, digging into all that, and even color psychology is always fantastic. But then what interests me particularly is more the behavioral side. So there's a lot of stuff there. And now with this sort of ChatGPT 4.0 deep research button, I don't know if you've pressed that button,
Yep,
but
that's mind-blowing.
my goodness, so it's tremendous the amount of research findings you can basically go through in an evening. And I get this thing to sort of write books to me.
Yeah.
So, and then I read them. I hope it's right. I hope it's correct. But so now the access is better than ever. So absolutely, you need educated decisions, right?
I just wonder where the line is drawn between privacy and access to all data and stuff. I mean, it's sort of. Do you integrate ChatGPT 4 into it, or is it?
No, there's no meaning in the poet operational side.
Just wonder if you could actually type in and say, look, I'm looking to do this, and this. What's the reset? Well, you just do it on ChatGPT.
Exactly. There's no point, having that
solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Exactly. But by all means. So, I suppose I'm kind of starting to repeat myself, but it's about designing for the outcomes. So don't design lighting, design behavioral outcomes. Design behavioral outcomes based on contextual changes.
What do you think is wrong with the way that we design spaces at the moment then? Like your standard environment that is created by an architect, interior designer, lighting designer, M&E contractor. What do you think we could do better, and why do you think the buildings that we're building aren't
I think maybe the biggest issue there is that they're sort of one-off solutions, right? So they're sort of to a large extent tried and tested solutions. People apply them, and it's very top down. So you apply the solution and it's there forever, and it's one size fits all type of thing. I think that's the missed opportunity, because our lives are not like that. The life of a building is not like that. The value creation of a real estate doesn't work like that. So you need to design for flexibility. You need to design for personalization, and you need to design for multiple use cases, right? And if you just approach it almost like we like to call it a digital infrastructure. So you do that CapEx investment, you put enough flexibility so that yes, your lighting can move, change tonality, be easily controlled, is digital basically. Your media outputs are part of the same system, your sound is part of the same system, your BMS is part of the same system, then okay, great. Now it's like everything is a pixel. So to change everything now is so cost effective. It costs you literally almost nothing. Don't need specialists on site. You can manage with a digital twin, like the future. Okay, is this something that would work? Okay, yeah, that would work. Okay, well, let's execute it for next Thursday, 2:00 then. So it's the digital physical. So use that. Lean on it, right? It's an opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity. So I would say that's maybe the only thing, is that it's very formulaic across the board and very top down.
Do you see the uptake of this approach that you've sort of, I guess, started is increasing? Is sort of word spreading, and people are saying, "Oh, I see the benefits." And I guess during the process, you're able to explain the benefits through the data you're gathering, like increased health and energy saved from lifts not being used, etc. Are you finding that it's a lot easier to communicate this to people, and are you seeing this trend of, I guess, high startup cost for future gains in multiple different avenues, health, energy, carbon? Are you seeing that this is growing as a trend very quickly, and do you see it as sort of like a very reliable future for where we'd be in say 30 years? Do you think this will be a very, very prominent norm in a lot of the new buildings that are being created?
Well, first of all, I do see a trend that, and the COVID was the turning point, and the trend is primarily under the flag of experiential environments. So suddenly the value of experience has increased dramatically. So let's say a workplace or an office now needs to be an experience in order for people to come in. So
Hotelification, I think they call it now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of hospitality thinking is going in there, and similar sort of things happening in the sports world, similar sort of things happening in F&B, in hospitals. So that underlying trend is easy to see. And yes, it's growing because it's part of the experience economy, which in itself is like a segment of economy is probably the fastest growing one. So there's a lot of value being created.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because we are disconnected, more disconnected than ever? Is it because we're living in stagnant spaces and need to feel like we're not? And why do you think experiential...
Well, maybe that is the paradox, that we are more connected than ever, but we feel
disconnected
or something. Yeah, I mean, we crave collective experiences. So, like, maybe one of the reasons why various kinds of VR type of applications have been so slow to take off is because it's not compelling enough for us to sort of be boxed out alone, yeah, with virtual friends type of thing.
I agree.
So it could explain partially why that's not so appealing for people. So yeah, I think it's many things like that. The younger generations are very, very well known for the fact that they invest in experiences rather than goods. So your status...
We can't really afford goods, that's probably why.
Well, I'm not sure. It's just I think it's a status thing. So whereas before you would sort of communicate status with a watch and a car and a this and a that. Now it's maybe a little bit less of that, and now you communicate status by saying, "Oh, we went to India for 7 weeks, and then we did that and did that," right? So experiences, just culturally, societally, have increased in value. So, and then built environment obviously is an integral part of all that, and the built environment has to respond, and mass customization is a trend. This personalization overall is a trend. So we make sense in all of those kind of concepts.
Well, in a building as well, it's quite interesting that you end up almost being a blanket that weaves itself throughout the entire building and creates separate spaces. They suddenly come together under one ambient control that almost makes it a habitat within multiple boxes that are just lodged together.
Exactly, and one
really.
One influences the other, and the content flows in from one to the other.
Beautiful.
So it is that sort of platform thinking, almost like an operating system. Some time ago, like maybe in the beginning, we kind of explained this like, it's like a Photoshop for built environment, but now it's more like a
the interface, I guess.
Or more it's like an operating system.
Lived experience of it is.
It's like an operating system for the built environment, the visual operating system. Let's keep it that.
For me, I mean, the way that you explain it, for me, it kind of makes me feel like it's putting the community and the connectivity and the life back into what ultimately is a stagnant box. We can have lights that turn a bit orange. We can have layers of light or sound or whatever it might be. Speakers that are in the ceiling that you can they've got the, what do they call it, 4D sound or whatever they call it now, where it goes around the room. There's all that kind of stuff, but I don't know, the fabric of the building still seems disconnected and too regular.
And not there to serve, not there to serve us in a way that supports the context where we in that particular moment. So you know, there's so much value you can extract from them, and being it soft values, experiential values, emotional side, and then just purely kind of commercial and sustainable. I mean, there's nothing more sustainable than the fact that you take the existing infrastructure and reinvent purposes for it, right? And you do it with digital tech, which, like, now in our projects, when you start looking at the maths, you know, it's the capex is like, it's not expensive because you don't build anything like, let's say, a stadium. You don't build it for, it's not a pop-up, right? It's going to be there for a long time. So if you then track it even a short period, like a 5-year period, and you say, okay, that 2 million over 5 years versus the direct revenue models and stuff like that you can plug into this and keep reinventing because it's a platform, like, it pays itself back really quickly. So why would you not do it? So I think the reason I'm saying that is because you come from the lighting industry. I'm familiar with the lighting industry. A typical story is that lighting gets cut because it's expensive and it's value engineered and da. It's not expensive at all. It's just not considered necessary. So the concept is not good enough. No one's gonna cut the steel, right? Because it's pretty relevant to have it. You can't have, okay, let's just save some money and do the entire structure out of aluminium instead of steel for the skyscraper. Well, not going to happen. So if the lighting has a real good purpose to be there, a real good reason, there is behavioral outcomes, there is revenue models attached to it, there's all sorts of operational key things, even maybe crowd control, maybe it's even security. Well, of course it's not going to be cut. It would be madness to cut that because you're cutting your operations. So it's not expensive. It's just incorrectly positioned.
Well, this is, the podcast is called In Light of It All because it's not just looking at light, it's looking at surface, texture, color, behavioral psychology, neuroaesthetics, everything that we are as human beings in our reaction to everything. We're looking at sound and smell and all that kind of stuff, but the thing for me is how influential light is and how overlooked it is. So this is kind of a bit of a journey of exploration, really, to put the why behind lighting not being removed, because lighting designers, they are the secret sauce to every space, right? And the amount of presentations I do where I'm like, okay, so this is wavelengths, they are radiation, just like a microwave or an infrared or whatever, and how you put it is direct. Would you light an amazing space you spent 2.5 years doing mood boards and architectural layouts with an iPhone torch? No, but we basically do that. And would you happily allow flicker to be in the space, which they used to use as a torture technique in the CIA? No, but we do. So it's education, and it's awesome talking to people like yourself, because you're so much further along in the thinking of this kind of stuff, and it's really interesting to turn the cogs in my mind, and hopefully the people listening, about just the true savings, the carbon benefits, the experiential community side of things, but also just actually thinking about the deeper thing for me, which is sort of, we spend 90% of our time indoors now, so 79 years of our life indoors. So there are habitats, and every single room is basically like weird random Lego that's just bashed together, and we don't have that living, breathing ecosystem that we evolved outside to expect. Your software seems to, and this isn't a paid ad at all, this is literally just me being a bit of a fanboy, but it's so bloody cool, and I mean, like I said, I've been really looking forward to talking to you about it, because it's really, really, really exciting, the potential of it. But I think the thing that really resonated for me is the fact that you can weave, you said that the most impactful thing at the moment is experiential experiences, right, where communities are feeling maybe disconnected, but these shared experiences, for me it is the disconnect, and your software seems to be able to create disconnected spaces and habitats and connect them together again and all the people within that. So yeah, with all the benefits we spoke about. So look, thank you so much for coming on. I know you've also got a flight to catch back to Madrid. I'm jealous of that, despite being 22 degrees. I bet you got sort of 29, 30 out there, and sangria. But yeah, Tapio, it's been awesome. Thank you so much, man. Pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise.
Okay, so that's it for this episode of In Light of It All, the show that distills complex science and design research into facts you'll actually remember. If you enjoyed it, follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube so you don't miss the next one. And if you have 30 seconds, please do leave a review. It helps much more than you think. If you've got a question or would like to appear or know someone else whose work we should uncover, feel free to email me at xander@lighttribe.co.uk or just add me on LinkedIn. And remember, the more you understand light, the more you understand how the world works. See you next time.